Our interview this morning is with Tim Seckel. Tim was born April of 1973 at Marion, Ohio. He served in the United States Army from January of 2004 through October of 2009. Highest rank attained was E4. This interview was conducted at Burleson, Texas on Friday, August the 13th, 2010. My name is Dale Dexheimer. I'm not related to Tim. Also in the room we have Milton Gibson and Gary Burton, who are our videographers. This interview is conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress and also Operation Remember for the city of Burleson, Texas. And with that introduction, Tim, we'll let you tell us your story of your time in the U.S. military.
Okay.
Your story the way you want to tell us, sir.
Well, I joined the Army when I was 32 years old. I was the old guy. I did my basic training at Fort Knox, Kentucky as a Cavalry Scout back in 2005. I've got three children, Savannah, 15, Grant, 12, and Sadie, 9. Was divorced, decided to go into the military, be part of something bigger in my life than what I was achieving at the time. I was, a chef working in hotels and everything. So joined the military and didn't want to do any mechanic work. I really wanted to get into meat stuff. So did cold of winter in Fort Knox, Kentucky. I mean, it was cold, real cold. It was so cold, a couple of days, they even had to bring us in when we were supposed to stay outside. Had great basic training. After I got out of basic, decided to do, it's called recruiting, hometown recruiting. Came back from hometown for a couple weeks, worked the recruiting office, and then I was stationed in Fort Benning, Georgia. There I was attached to 269, 3rd ID, Speed and Power. We were the only Cavalry Scouts in that battalion with 269. It was mostly infantrymen. Fort Benning was known as the home of infantry. Now it's a maneuvering center. They've moved all of Fort Knox and everything to Fort Benning now. There I did all kinds of training. I mean, anything Cavalry Scout you can think of. Learned a lot of weapons. We mostly drove Humvees. We did drive Bradleys. I wasn't trained on a Bradley. We had a 4-man or 4 Bradley crew, and 4 guys were trained on Bradleys, but I wasn't. I was my captain's driver, the platoon leader, Captain Sirota. He was my platoon leader. And then we had 2 platoon sergeants, Sergeant Matwig and Sergeant Johnson. Sergeant Matwig was there at the beginning and Sergeant Johnson took over. In my truck, which was Sabre 1, we had Sergeant Wiley, Norris Wiley, great, one of the best men you can possibly imagine. Great leader, true trainer. He always ragged on me because I was older than him. They all called me Popsicle. My last name's Seckel, and I was one of the oldest guys in my platoon. I think there was one other guy older than me. But they all ragged on me about being the oldest guy and being a private when I first started. I said, you don't have to worry about me. I was made for comfort, not for speed. And you can run laps around me, but I can outruck you any day. And when we were to be a Cavalry Scout, after you'd done all your training at basic training, you had to do a 20-mile ruck march with 60-pound pack, with also all your body armor and your weapon. And a lot of guys fell out, but unfortunately I didn't. And then after the 20-mile ruck march, you get pinned your sabers, and they do a big ceremony and everything like that. And they pin you your sabers on your collars, and they used to smack them down, but now since it's the ACU digital camo, they Velcro it on, so it's funny. Once I was at Fort Benning, trained there for a little over a year. and was attached to Sabre 1. I was Sabre 1 Delta. I was the driver. And when we got shipped over, I eventually became a gunner, trained as a gunner. Sergeant Wiley did that, took me under his wings. And he was in there for years when he was a gunner. We trained, we went to Kuwait. We first went to Kuwait, got all of our Bradleys and Humvees. And when we got all of our military equipment shipped over from Benning that we had to ship over in Connexes to Kuwait. We were in Kuwait for 3 weeks to a month, I believe. It was around that time frame. And then once we got there, we were stationed at FOB Restamaya in Baghdad. I believe, my memory's not the best, so you have to excuse me, but I do believe it was where it was stationed at was a military college where Saddam Hussein trained all of his military people. So we took over that, and it became a FOB. We stayed there. We were attached with 1st Cav. We were attached with 10th Mountain. We were attached with 2nd Cav. There was quite a few divisions there. As a cavalry scout, we were the eyes and ears of the Army. We did sneak and peeks. We did observations. We did, our training, we trained on pretty much any weapon you can give us, we can take care of it. We were always told if they see you, you're not doing your job right. Because as a cavalry scout, you're never supposed to be seen. And we've done reconnaissance by force. That's where we make sure that people are doing the right things. And we usually normally did drive-arounds, convoy, security. We drove around, we called them mahallas. They were neighborhoods in Baghdad. They were called mahallas, and we drove Humvees there because the Bradleys were so big and the turret and everything. You couldn't get around them. You couldn't get around with them. We stayed in the FOBs 1 or 2 days a week, sometimes 1 day a week, sometimes 3 days a week, just depending on missions that we were supposed to go out and do. When we first got there, we stayed in this old bombshell building, and then they had T-barriers, Alaskan T-barriers. They're real high metal T-barriers, like when you were driving down a highway, but they were small. And that's what they would surround the buildings with, because they would be mortared. We'd get mortared every night when we were there, it seemed like, sometimes close to 10 times a night. Sometimes only once. Sometimes we didn't do it at all. And they did it at night so we couldn't get any sleep. But when we were out, we stayed in COPs. They were combat outposts. At least that's what we called them. And we stayed in a couple of them. We stayed in this, I believe it was a rec center for Saddam on the Tigris River. And they had tennis courts on one side, and then on the other side of the building they had swimming pools. They drained all the swimming pools out and they just trashed it. The tennis courts they filled with the Iraqi army stationed vehicles there. And then we overlooked the Tigris River. We oversaw a special forces house that we oversaw. We could see the Hotel Baghdad, big bridge, and it was definitely a humbling experience. You hear about a lot of things, in Vietnam, where you had to burn feces and stuff like that. Well, we had to do that same things. We had a lot of luxuries that other warriors didn't have. When we were back in FOBs, we had computers and laptops, and we kept in contact with our family members, and we ate well. It was good food, and so we did have a lot of luxuries. But when we were out on missions, pretty much the luxuries went away. You wear body armor, 120-degree weather, in the middle of August and July. So it it was pretty intense. You know, not much rain. The winters there were cold. I mean, they're 50, 60 degrees, and we think that it's pretty warm. But when you're used to 120 degrees, you drop down that much. It was pretty hot. It was pretty cold at nights. When we lived out in Cops, we slept on fold-out cots and stuff like that, and we did overwatch and security. We were on for 4 hours, off for 4 hours. We were mostly out in the field, though. We were mostly doing the University of Baghdad. We did a lot of training with the Iraqi soldiers. We did a lot of missions with them. We taught them how to do security, and also how to do just observations and things like that. We did do a lot of stuff with the people. We tried to supply some clean water. We met a lot with the, it was, and forgive me, it was small meetings with the Shiites and Sunnis, and we met with them and try to figure out what they need for their neighborhoods. Try to get a little bit more cleaned up and everything else. And what surprised me, though, is they had advertisements for LG Electronics and Everson, Sony, Samsung. You could see all these things, posted up. But they were the most filthiest people ever. They never used toilet paper. When they use the restrooms, they use their hands, and then they wash them off with water. And that's why we never shook their hands. We always, assalamu alaikum, and may God be with you, and salaikum salam, and may He be with you. You pick up a lot of words like that. You cover your heart, and it's a respect. Some of the best times, though, was with my buddies. Being out now, I've been out for close to 7.5, 8 months now, and that's some of the stuff I miss the most is my best friends. Wiley, Captain Sirota, Doug Sirota, now is the commanding officer for Officer Candidate School, OCS school in Fort Benning. Best friends, Kudron, Kenny, I mean, you name it, they were the best guys. We played chess at night at Joe's coffee shop in the fob. Joe didn't serve coffee. He didn't have coffee. It was mostly chai or tea, whatever, however you want to say it, tea. It was real strong tea. We played chess at night, when we were downtime. Some of the, we played practical jokes. I remember one time, Megacy, he was my roommate. We played a joke on him. It was his birthday, and we took all of his clothes when he was in the shower, and then threw shaving cream all over him. And he was running out in a towel and screaming for his clothes, and that was some fun times. We'd light cigars on top of that recreation center on the Tigris River, and just it was so high enough that nobody could see over. So that was the only time that you didn't have to wear your Kevlar or your body armor when you were outside. Inside you could take it off, but outside you had to wear your body armor and everything else on. In the fobs you didn't have to, but you always had to carry your weapon. I carried a M4 with a 203 grenade launcher. I carried a 9mm. On our trucks we had 240 machine guns with 50 cal machine guns. We also had different vision, LRAS we called them, long range optics, and then we had the Bradleys, with the 25 Mike and the 240 Charlie, or 240 Bravo, either one. And we also had tow missiles, and so we were well equipped. We had magazines filled with 5.56 rounds. I also had 7.62s. I remember one of our buddies, Bell, he carried the saw, and he was a mean man with that. Rivera was always we called him our local Puerto Rican, because he was always, he was from New York and in Florida, and he was one of the best kids ever. I mean, he was a young kid. And then Russell, we called him Russell the Love Muscle. He was such a great kid. I mean, he was, we always teased him that he was the whitest black man we ever knew. It sounded like he was from Yale or Harvard. I mean, he was just so eloquent when he did speak. Pretty Richie, Sergeant Richie, always carried a mirror and a brush. And he wanted those waves in his hair. He was a African-American guy, and just great guy. And then John Bruner, I'll get back to John, in a little bit, but I don't know how long we have. I mean, you tell me. We're good? Cool.
Yep.
So, I mean, we were there for quite a while. Then it came time that Captain Sirota was changing command. He was going to a different department, and we were going to get another lieutenant in to take over, be our platoon leader. And I knew this was coming. Being in the captain's truck, I knew, it was coming. You hear stuff and everything else. So about a week before, we kind of, he told us we're going to get a Lieutenant Eads. Lieutenant Jonathan Eads, young guy out of West Point. He already had a command before at another FOB, and didn't know much about him. I knew he was from Michigan, so he was a Wolverine fan. And myself being a Buckeye, since I was born in Marion, Ohio, I'm a Buckeye and a Texas fan, so go figure. I had to give him a ration of it. So he got there, it was August 17th, 2007. We were, Lieutenant Eads just came in, and we were going to head out to, he just came into FOB Rest of Mine. We were going to head out to the COP, COP LB. That was one of the COPs we were at. And we were heading out to the spaghetti warehouse. It was another COP where we stayed at. It was an old spaghetti factory in Baghdad, go figure, that we took over. It had a mansion, and then it had a warehouse and everything else. And it was right smack down in a mahala. I mean, right in the middle of a neighborhood. And it was like 5 points. I mean, it had a traffic circle on one side of it, and then on the other side of it, it had 3 streets that goes out. One at, I guess it would be my 9 o'clock, one at 5 o'clock, and one at 3 o'clock. I mean, it was different ways out. And then the warehouse was right there in front. And, it was enclosed in with a metal board, and then we put a big 5-ton truck in front of it and stuff like that. And then we had different observation points that we had to take a look at, 3 on the mansion and 3 on the warehouse. And it was all set up. I'm just trying to give you a picture. This place was massive, right? It's like a big warehouse. And then we parked our Humvees inside of the complex. I mean, we made a, MWR gave us weights. I mean, we put that inside a warehouse. It's all concrete bunker. And it's surrounded with T-barriers as well. I remember little kids throwing rocks over the T-barriers just to piss us off. I mean, just, gosh. And, we're sitting there playing poker, late at night, because that was the only time when you're on for 4 hours on and 4 hours off, you don't get much sleep. So we sit down and play some poker or whatever. So we were back at FOB Rest of Mine, heading to the spaghetti warehouse. I forget what COP that name is. But anyways, Lieutenant Eads came up, and we were doing a mission brief. Sergeant Wiley was gunning that night, and I was driving. I love to drive. I mean, I just had a talent for it. And Wiley, you picture this man, Wiley, Norris Wiley, he's maybe 6'2", 6'3", just a big bear. When I first got to Fort Benning, he hated my guts, and I hated his guts, because he was always ragging on me because I was an old guy and I just did as much as I physically could. And he didn't think I was, you know, a cavalry scout because I was old. He thought it was a young man's game. And we just didn't hit it off. And then when I became his driver and he was my gunner, you know, he knew my work ethic and that the truck was always ready. He worked on the radios and the machine guns, the 240 and the LRAS that was on our truck. But I made sure we had ice, water. I made sure all of our equipment was there, backup ammunition. And then he finally just said, hey, start taking over comms. Start learning doing comms. And he taught me comms. You know, we had to communicate with battalion and also communicate with our platoon. So we had 2 headsets on, which a lot of other guys in Humvees only had 1 headset. We did take the Bradleys out though, and I'll go back to the story. I apologize for jumping, but we took the Bradley out one time, and that one time we were supposed to do an overwatch. We remember I told you that there was 4 guys that were supposed to be trained. Well, only 3 guys were trained. So Captain Sirota comes up to me and he says, Seckel, and I go, yeah, he goes, you're going to be driving a Bradley tonight. I go, sir, you know I've only driven a Bradley in a parking lot and out and back into a parking space. And he goes, no time like the present to learn how to do it. So luckily, Wiley served in another tour over in Iraq. He took me under his wing, showed me what to do and how to do it. And he was with the driver before, Dixon. He was a great Bradley driver, and he showed me a lot of things to do. So we're out there. These Bradleys are just big, massive hauls. I mean, they're insane how hot they are. You're laying like in a cockpit in an aircraft. And then the turret, you're so close. And Wiley was probably about 260, 250, 260, you know, big, stocky guy. Him and Captain Sirota were in a turret. So they were snuggling up with each other, you know. And then the back area, you know, were for the guys that got out and pulled security or whatever like that, you know. So we're driving over a bridge, and Captain Sirota goes, Seckel, go to left. Remember, I had never had training, you know, it's just there and back, you know, that was as much as I recall. And he goes, don't run over that wire. As soon as he said that, I ran over the wire. So all this wire gets tangled up in the tracks. So they're all yelling and cussing at me, you know, saying, what are you doing? You know, and joking, I'm saying, I didn't see it. It was night, it was dark. Well, it was coming dark, it was dusk. So anyways, guys had to go out and cut all that out. It was some of the fun times I remember, because I was still sitting in the Bradley just laughing, because I ran over it and I don't have to go out and cut it. And that was pretty crappy of me, but it was funny to me at the time. So anyways, back to August 17th, Lieutenant Eads came to the FOB, Rustamayan. We were doing a mission brief, and he was doing a right seat ride, which is, the way you're located is you have the driver, you have the captain, or the tank commander or truck commander, the TC, and then you have the gunner and the turret. And sometimes we would have the interpreter riding with us in the back seat behind me. And then a right seat ride is the commander or whoever's going with us to go see what's going on in the area would be sitting behind the commander, the truck commander. Well, that day, Wiley and I, it was going to be at night, our mission was going to be at night, but that day we were having problems with our comms. They were wanting to change out antennas. It was just hot as can be, you know, August. 100-something degrees. Well, the door behind me would not lock. Inside you had to push down and it would lock. That way no one on the outside could get in, you know, if they wanted to, something like that. Well, I told my commander, because we were supposed to have another guy, another commander, or another captain, Captain Chiggy, he was supposed to ride with us too, or our interpreter. Red Bull. Red Bull was our interpreter. We were never to know his real name, and he could never show his face. Well, Red Bull, I said, Cap, there's no one that can drive behind me because it won't lock from the inside. So I had to put a lock down. I put a lock on it so no one could get in, because you could still get in from the outside. So we were rolling out 12 o'clock at night, and we were going through Mahalas, kind of show them areas and everything. Now, a lot of these neighborhoods don't have sewers. They had the human feces were on top. So we were going around, and to this day, I could still tell you how to go and where to go in these neighborhoods. And so Lieutenant Eads behind Captain Sirota, Wiley's in the turret, and I'm driving, and we're second truck. Normally, command vehicle is second vehicle a lot of the times. We change it up sometimes or whatever. Going through a Mahala, and I'm ragging on Lieutenant Eads. You know, I'm saying, you know, I can't believe you're a Wolverine fan, you know, Michigan, how's that, and everything. So we're going down, and we had, if I recall right, we had 5 trucks that night. We go through this neighborhood, a T intersection. And at this T intersection, excuse my French, it's called Shitwater Street. And then we're going through this way. And we took a right turn, and I believe it was Sabre 2 that was the first vehicle. I could be wrong. It could be, our Sabres were our call sign. First truck goes by, and there's a whole bunch of trash too, still, trash bags and everything else. And it's T intersection, and there's a house, normally houses lined up on each side of the house, or normally stores. And then there was nothing. There was a field behind us with on to the right of us with the field, and then I remember 2x4s or wood strips on the right side. Well, went by, we took a right. I don't know, it was maybe, it was maybe 100 yards to the intersection after we take a right, about 100 yards to the intersection, maybe even closer. First truck goes by, he goes straight by this trash pile. Well, I see the trash pile, and it's just instinct, go away from it. You know, try to drive in the middle or go away from it. Well, I pulled to the right to go away from it. As soon as I did, right when I was talking to Lieutenant Eads, I said, "Oh, by the way, sir, we call this Shitwater Street." And as soon as I said that, an EFP blew up. And an EFP is bigger and better than an IED. It's a copper-filled coffee can that they melt down, and they put shrapnel, they put copper, they put all kinds of, I don't know all the technical terms about a lot of it anymore. And it's a remote dead normally. Well, as soon as I went to the right and told them that was Shitwater Street, boom, it blew up on my side. And it blew up maybe 5 feet away from me. And the way my Humvee was angled, because when I missed it, I had to go back a little bit. And the Humvees are so close to you, the steering wheels are so close to you with all the body armor. So I took these 2 pins out in the back so I could lean back a little bit. Well, as soon as I did that, it gave me more room in the steering wheel. But it puts my head closer to the back. In Humvees, we had these up-armored, bulletproof shields, window panes and stuff like that. We had to manufacture and jerry-rig ourselves to the sides of the doors. Well, so anyways, picture, you know, the big Humvee doors, and then also some more windows and everything else to up-armor it more. Well, as soon as I turn to the right, it blows up, and it throws me up onto the radio mount. And it was kind of like my back went like this. I went to the side, and my back went like this, and my legs stayed where they were at, and went like that. They went to the left more. So it broke my back, my L5-S1, and herniated discs in my spine, also in my neck, and knocked me unconscious for about 5 to 10 seconds. And once it blew up, though, it blew through the up armored windows, those glass panes, hit Wiley, and he was wearing side panel vests that we had, bulletproof vests, went through the back, hit the turret, and the shrapnel went into Wiley's left side. The shrapnel then hit Lieutenant Eads, that was in the back seat from the turret, and ripped his face off. Just completely, didn't kill him instantly, but you know, he was gone. And a lot of this story from here on is what I've been told and part of my recollections. Wiley, after getting shrapnel, was the first to take shots at the ambush that we were in. What happened was we found out that this is the stories I was told, that a family was kidnapped and put down into their first floor by some insurgents, and the insurgents were on top of the roof and did the remote det from on top of the roof at that T intersection where that house was. So here we are, the first truck is passed, we're in the middle of the intersection, and Wiley gets shrapnel and still was the first one to start shooting up on top of the house where we were getting shooting from. He was a true hero that night. Wiley was a true patriot American, saved a lot of lives. He saved my life. He told me that he does still to this day, he doesn't know how I stopped the truck, because he said if I would have went further up, I would have ran into the first truck. But thank God I stopped the truck, because I don't remember. I mean, I always carried my hand on the brake, so I'm driving and I stopped it. I think it was just an impulse thing. I don't know. I don't remember. And the radio mounts that they threw me up on, you know, it tweaked my neck, so I couldn't move my neck very good. And so Wiley's shooting to the left of us. Captain Sirota, a true captain, took charge, commanded where people to go, who to shoot, pull security, you know, start firing down. And then I believe it was Sergeant Lynch was one of the sergeants that was in the first truck, came to my rescue and pulled me out of the truck. And then I'm in the middle of the firefight. So the truck is here. They pull me out of the truck. I'm here, and the firefighter is coming down here. So bullets are hitting off of the truck and hitting onto me. Well, this Captain Chiggy, with all his wisdom, to this day, I still understand what he was thinking, tried to come and take my Kevlar off in the middle of a firefight, and pulls it off and says, "Seckel, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Are you an idiot? Put my Kevlar back on, sir." I said, "I'm in the middle of a firefight. My M4, where it blew up, because I kept it in between me and my door, broke. So I didn't have a weapon. And my 9mm that I normally carry on my right leg was in a pack, because I'm a big guy, and every time I tried to use the handle and everything, I couldn't have it with me. So normally I strapped it on me when we got out of the truck. It was an easy strap, you know, on there. So I'm yelling at him, put my Kevlar back on. Bullets are flying both ways. And then I had to crawl with Sergeant Lynch's help through human feces for about 5 to 10 yards. He had to cover me sometimes, and I had to crawl on my right side because I was paralyzed on my left side. Couldn't move my left arm, couldn't move my left leg. I just got my vision back. I was blinded because I had my nods on. When I turned to the right and was telling them about Shipwater Street, that's when it blew up. And so if you have your night vision on and you see this big flash of light, it pretty much blinds you. You know, after 15, 20 minutes of being in the middle of the firefight, trying to crawl, it started getting pretty insane. Then Sergeant Lynch, you know, was trying to help, and all the guys were shooting, you know, taking cover. Caulfield was one of the gunners in the other truck. Sergeant Lynch threw me in the truck, and Red Bull, our interpreter, was in the first truck. With Colston was driving that night, and Caulfield was gunning. And Red Bull was sitting in the back. Well, Red Bull kept on having to smack me around to keep me conscious. So I was in and out of consciousness. That's the stories up to that part. Well, that's when Wiley got hurt. Band-Aid, our medic, he pulled Lieutenant Eads out with some, I don't know the other guys that pulled him out, but I know there was a lot of action. I just don't remember a lot of the stuff. But I was told is Band-Aid, our medic, and to this day I forget we always call him Band-Aid. It's just one of those things that clicked. Threw him on top of another Humvee in the front and tried to save his life by doing CPR and what he could to save Lieutenant Eads' life. Wiley got into another truck. That Wiley was in the truck, and then Lieutenant Eads, I believe, was on the hood of that truck. And then I was in Sergeant Lynch's truck. I was falling in and out of consciousness. You know, Red Bull was smacking me around. Sergeant Lynch was saying, "Seckel, you're going home. You know, this is a good thing. You're going home." And 2 other trucks stayed behind to protect the Humvee that was in the front that we blew up. And he had to protect, you know, what was going on there. Because they normally got another vehicles to come pick up destroyed vehicles. They took us to FOB Loyalty. Myself and Sergeant Wiley and Lieutenant Eads. I'm smelling like total ass. I mean, I'm just reeking. And I know I know what some of the guys told me the stories, you know, what happened after they left, and some had to stay with the truck to make sure no one came. And I know some people did some good things to make sure that no one got information from us. They did what they were trying to do. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. Anyways, at FOB Loyalty, they got us out of the stretchers, and the nurses and the doctors there, second to none, true American heroes. Some funny stuff though is they pull me into the stretcher and they start cutting me out, cutting all my stuff off and everything like that. Well, you know, if you ever heard of a spinal cord injury that your penis is fully erect, I remember these beautiful nurses, and I'm going, they were all worried about, here I am naked, laid out, naked as a jaybird, and I can't, you know, I can't do anything about it. You know, you're out there. And I said, please cover me up, you know. So doctors were working on Sergeant Wiley. Thank God I didn't get any shrapnel. Sergeant Wiley got the shrapnel, and Lieutenant Eads got the shrapnel. To this day, I don't still understand how I didn't, because my head, where the blast was in my head, it's impossible for me not to think that my head should have been blown off. So Sergeant Wiley's getting worked on. I'm here. Sergeant Wiley's across to the left-hand side, and Lieutenant Eads is on my right, right beside me on the left-hand side. And as soon as the doctor said my neck is okay, they took it out of the brace and stuff like that. They turned my head to the left, and I oversee over there doctors jumping on Lieutenant Eads, pounding his chest to try to resuscitate him and try to save him. And I broke down. That's when all the adrenaline stuff stopped. That's just a vision you'll never get rid of. I'm trained to do whatever I needed to protect my fellow soldiers, and so that's not a problem. Didn't have a problem securing the safety of my buddies. But once my buddies get hit, it's a completely different story. All bets are off. So we were there for a little bit. They covered us up, and they were going to fly us out to, Wiley's got shrapnel getting taken out of him, and he's worried about me, how I'm doing, asking doctors to take care of me, and that's just the type of leader he is. They started loading us up. We were going to go to a Black Hawk to Anaconda. Anaconda was another station, the big station with the airplanes and everything else, the major port. So it was loading us up onto the Black Hawk, and Captain Chiggy, with his ultimate wisdom, was asking us, "What do you want us to tell your guys?" And Sergeant Wiley goes, "Tell them I love them. I'm hearing this over the choppers. Tell them I love them." And he came to me and he goes, "Seckel, what do you want me to tell? What do you want to tell the guys?" And I raised my arm up and tell them I'm still sexy. And because during the whole close to a year there, I'd always wake up and say, "It's hard being this damn sexy every day." And I was trying to be the comedian, the old guy with a sense of humor. So they put us in the chopper, flew us to Anaconda. Wiley stayed with me. They flew Wiley out first, and then I flew out. Memory was going from Anaconda. This is when it went to Loyalty, to the Cache and the Green Zone, where they did the surgery on Sergeant Wiley, and that's where Sergeant Major Prof and Colonel Perry pinned us our Purple Hearts. Wiley and myself. I couldn't stand erect. I was bent over all the time. First Sergeant Daniels was there. And then from the Cache, they took us to Anaconda. And then from Anaconda, they took us to Landstuhl, Germany. And at Landstuhl, Germany, I was there close to 2.5, 3 weeks. Wiley left before me, and it was like in between Wiley leaving and myself staying there, I lost no one knew where I was at. No one in the military seemed to know where I was at. My guys didn't know where I was at. No one knew where I was at. Until John Bruner, I was talking about him before. Sergeant John Bruner is a scout, and he had some injuries to his back. With their ultimate wisdom, I'm in a cane, hardly can stand up straight, and they put me on a second floor to walk upstairs. They didn't have elevators, to walk upstairs in Landstuhl. And so I'm walking downstairs with my cane, and all of a sudden, who do I see is Sergeant Bruner walking up the stairs because he got injured. I broke down in tears, jumped in his arms. It was just a homecoming to a brother. I was there for another day, and they shipped me off to Stewart, and then from Stewart, I went to Fort Benning, and Sergeant Bruner was there for a couple of days, and they flew him back, and then did rehabilitation. I tried to stay in. I did everything in my power that physically I could do to try to stay in. I wanted to stay in, and they said, "No, you can't." So they put they put me into the, I believe what it's called, the Wounded Warrior Program, where it's the Wounded Warrior Battalion, where you do all your rehabilitation and everything else. And so I was there close to a year, maybe a little over a year, did all my physical therapy that they could provide, and then I got med boarded out with 90% disability, and then recently I just got 100% disability. They won't let me work. I've got TBI, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, post-traumatic stress, a spinal fusion with a cage and pins all on my back. My neck is all jacked up with herniated discs, bulging discs. I just had surgery on my elbow where they moved all my nerves, because when I went into the radial mount, my nerves got impacted in my bones, so they moved all my nerves to my right side. Can't sleep at night, constantly had nightmares, night terrors they call them. Don't have many friends, don't want many friends. Now I volunteer for Defenders of Freedom, a nonprofit organization, Welcome Home Soldiers. Also spend time with my 3 kids, my fiance, riding motorcycles, and because I refuse to let Iraq take away some of my passions, and I have to wear a back brace and everything else to ride them, but I still ride them and go hunting and fishing. There I am. That's all I got.
Been through a lot.
Yeah.
Let me ask you just a couple quickies here, Tim. A couple things impressed me. Number one, all of the personnel that you remember, you remember them all from basic all the way through. Secondly, it's pretty obvious that you're a recent member of the service. You've got all those acronyms, all those military things, they just roll off your tongue.
Yeah.
And after you've been out for 10 years or so, you'll forget some of them. But sneak and peek.
Mm-hmm.
What's a sneak and peek?
We would oversee, it was called like Route Pluto's, for instance. Pluto's was a route along Manger Street. We would oversee, make sure that no insurgents set up IEDs. We actually caught a couple of them, and they could see us, or we could see them, but they couldn't see us. So, just sneaking peeks.
Okay. If you could, you spent time there, good guys, bad guys. You give us a little evaluation of the bad guys, the enemy. Were they smart? Were they trained well?
They were very smart.
Didn't you really know who they were?
You did know who they were. I mean, we found out the kids, one of the guys that did reconnaissance on our ambush was a kid that wore a Pantera t-shirt, maybe 13, 14 years old. He did the reconnaissance. In my personal opinion, they were bad people and we took care of them. And there's still a lot of people that are heroes over there. Men and women that don't realize what they're doing and what they've done until they get back. And still to this day, we weren't mercenaries. We weren't looking for things. When we get back, we served our country. We volunteered for our country. All we ask for now is to be taken care of if we were injured, because we were serving our country. Either one way or another, but we weren't mercenaries. We're not asking for money when we get back and said, okay, we did the job, we want this now.
How you find dealing with the VA?
The VA are people that are under constant stress, undermanned, under money, and sometimes under not a lot of training for sympathy, because they're desensitized to what they see every day.
When I go back, I asked you to evaluate the enemy. What about the Iraqi army, the ones that were supposed to be on our side? We were helping them, I guess.
Have you ever seen that Money Dumb and Dumber? Imagine Dumb and Dumber with machine guns and trying to talk to a fungo baseball bat and trying to explain to him not to flag your buddy. And what I mean by flag is pointing your weapon at your buddy. It was just a lot of language and just the ability, you know. To me, it seemed like the people that lived in the slums were the people that were fighting. The people that were wealthy and well-to-do, they weren't in the army. They weren't in, you know, anything else. They didn't serve, at least what I saw. And then the dictators, what I saw is the dictators were the commanders. You know, they're good people that want to make a change, but the people that don't want to make a change, it's like it's a lost cause.
Somewhere you mentioned you had, I think it was a sergeant who handled the saw.
Mm-hmm. Sergeant Bell.
What's the saw?
Saw is a fully automatic machine gun. It's got a belt clip. I mean, it's a intense weapon. It's a heavy weapon.
Okay, one last question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do if Texas and Ohio State get into the national championship game?
I am a Longhorn fan, and it will be Texas. Done deal, hands down.
You bet.
Hands down.
Tim, thank you for the time this morning.
I appreciate it. Appreciate you all, what y'all
your
doing.
time in the service and your time with Defenders of Freedom, right?
Yes, sir.
You got to DFW, and when guys come back, you're there to meet and greet.
And welcome home, and then we help out the soldiers with TBI and PTSD with just some relaxation coping mechanisms.
You bet.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for doing this.